A very good afternoon to all of you. Today I'll be discussing with you community-based disaster management. Today's aim is to give an idea about community-based disaster management to you all. Let us discuss the content of the presentation. First of all, I'll be discussing with you all what is community-based disaster management, then what is the need of community-based disaster management, why do we need it, what are the components of community-based disaster management. Then we'll be discussing about role of social service in disaster management. Then we'll be looking forward towards a case study which is based on the community-based disaster management. Then we'll be seeing the practices which are conducted in different countries of community-based disaster management. Then we'll be concluding the topic and certain recommendations are being made by the government authorities. We'll be talking about those recommendations also. So what is community-based disaster management? First of all, let us discuss about community-based disaster management. Community-based disaster management is a tool, you can say, which is used to minimize the damage caused by the disaster happening at a particular place. That disaster could be a natural disaster, that disaster could be a man-made disaster. So the role of communities is quite important. They participate in the purpose of management of disaster. So if a situation is hazardous in nature, in conjunction with the vulnerability, if community will be helping to deal with such situation, the risk will be reduced or the impact will be mitigated. Okay, so why community based disaster management? Why do we need this? The need of community based disaster management is basically because of minimizing the efforts or damage caused by the disaster. Different government and international agencies have seen whenever disaster is happening at a particular place and the local community is not involved in that scene, the harm is quite more. The programs or initiative of the government is being failed in the management of disaster if the local community people are not coming forward. So local community people shall be encouraged to come forward to reduce the impact of the disaster. That's why it is important. A critical element of sustainable disaster management, communities participation in these activities. So participation in the activities of disaster management is needed by the community for effective management of the disaster. The most common element of the community involvement are they should participate. First of all, they should make the partnerships with different peoples such that the impact is reduced. They must empower. They must follow empowerment. They must empower themselves with the tools and technique and knowledge of management of disaster. The ownership of the local people is quite important. Local people shall always participate in the purpose of management of disaster so that the specific disaster can be dealt with the local peoples. Okay, let us see the component of the CBDM. What are the basic components of community-based disaster management? First of all, they should have a communication model. Communication model shall be there in order to transfer the information from one community to another community or one people to another people. This is quite important. Community preparedness program shall be there. Then developing partnership and connecting with the people shall be there. Community disaster resilience program shall be there. Community disaster response team shall be there. We will be seeing all this one by one. Communication model, you can say communication continuum model. This shall be effective education shall be provided to the people such that they transfer the information at a particular time. They must take the decision which of the act shall be done when. So this is quite important. Communication model, communication channels shall be quite effective in order to reduce or mitigate the effect of the disaster. Then communication continuum model basically consists of local must be aware about the risk that is associated with the disaster. Secondly, they must understand the impact of the event on the life of their family, on the life of the community. Third, they must accept the idea of not following a warning message can result injury to death. They must know that they must aware the people about the importance of the warning messages. If warning messages are being issued, they must follow the warning messages. Finally, they shall take action to reduce the impact of the disaster. This is how the raising awareness program about the risk is being carried out from particular community to community. There are education based models that are being depicted or presented in front of the public such that they are being made aware about the community models. Then certain community preparedness program. Second aspect, community preparedness program shall be made in order to make the public advancedly you can say ready about the consequences of an adverse event. So if public might be knowing about the consequence of an event, they might be ready to deal with that event, or they might be ready to cope with that event. Community preparedness program basically consists of raising public awareness and effecting behavioral changes in the areas of mitigation preparedness. Okay, raising public awareness is quite important. Everywhere the public shall be made aware, okay, for the consequences of the event. Warning system shall be made effective, reliable, such that people may rely on those warning system. Development of effective messaging for inducing favorable community response, mitigation, preparedness and warning. So effective message system shall be there, such that each and every information is being transmitted from one place to another quite quickly. This is how you can say at the time of disaster, loudspeakers are being used for providing the warnings in the areas where social media is not there, where electricity has not been reached still. In the villages, people use loudspeaker for the purpose of transmission of information. This is how the people is being made aware about the cyclone. They are moving away from their places in order to save themselves. These kind of you can say cyclone shelters are being made at the places of higher elevation. There the people stay for the safety of their life. This is one example, shelter in Gaptola, that's in Bangladesh. So these type of shelters are being made for the purpose of staying of the people in order to resist themselves from the risk of disaster. Okay, developing media partnership, this is important. Media's role is always important. Report and to develop life-saving responses. Media always report correct, and they always do the life-saving responses, provide the life-saving responses to the public. Raising public awareness, this is most important about the public awareness. Provide quality generic localized material to the public. Share weather reports, keep severe weather reports with the public. So this is the role of the media. They make aware people about the situation. So this is how say people used to use in the villages. This is a transistor, which they are using, a type of radio. Media partnership, media is giving such an instruction in the villages. People are listening them. They are spreading the messages far to their communities. Building broad community partnership, this is important. Community shall make partnership among themselves. Each and every people shall be given equal opportunity to participate in the community based model. Okay, if they need to achieve a target of minimizing the impact of the disaster, they must have a community partnership model. Process of community resilience, that is flexiness, you can say flexibility. Okay, so community flexibility shall not be there. Key to the effective management is effective communication. Communication shall be effective. Say this is especially true in case of hazards like tsunami. They comes within the instant of the second. Flash floods, inundation arrival times may not be in just minutes. Such an event require immediate, careful, systematic and appropriate response. So there any kind of flexibility can take thousands of life. Okay, so community resilience shall not be there. Warning reception shall be there, that all the warning signals shall be made susceptible such that they reach to the people at a particular instant of time. Process, you can say warning dissemination shall be there. Warning shall be provided to the officials. Community preparedness, community shall be made prepare about the devastating impacts of the disaster, such that they can reduce or mitigate its chances of loss of life. Community disaster response team, this is important. At the time of disaster, nobody is there to save you, so the community disaster response team is being made. They respond to the situation. They take the roles of district emergency organization by helping to increase their capacity. They, along with the district emergency organization, act towards the helping of the people. The Red Cross trains are there. They equip the community disaster response team, CDRT, in each community to enable themselves to carry out emergency response when disaster occurs. So whenever emergency response is needed, CDRT go there for the help of the people. They also have Red Cross trains. They are equipped with different things which are helpful for the public at the time of disaster. CDRT training, what does it comprises of? The team learns about fire prevention, basic search and rescue operation, first aid operation, initial damage assessment, shelter management, psychological preparation. So these things are quite obvious for the purpose of dealing with disaster. So they are being made aware about all those things. CDRT role and function, the main role and function of the CDRT to assist community resilience. Okay, they are assisting the community resilience, they are assisting the Department of Emergency Management, helping the community to prepare the response to the disaster through the public education initiative. They make the public education initiative, developing and maintaining the strategic plan. They have strategies that they follow for the welfare of the public, mobilizing residents to participate in risk reduction activities. They introduce public with the risk reduction activities. They make them aware about such situations. Community disaster response team, see, you can see Red Crescent brings safe water to the families displaced by the flooding. Volunteer worked with the emergency service in both rescue and relief. So this is the role of community disaster response team. Role of social workers in the disaster. Some of the social workers are also there. They engage the publics in the awareness campaign, coordinating disaster management and development activities, communicating, you can say, capacity building of the people. They make people aware through the social, economic, environmental levels, enhancing community preparedness. They help in preparing the public, educating the public how to mitigate the risk. Psychological support, they also provide, tracking the people down to the family reunions. Okay, recruiting local volunteers. They recruit the local volunteers for the purpose of helping the public. Promoting the needs of marginalized citizens. All the citizens, they are being affected by the say drought or any of the natural disaster or man-made disaster. They help themselves to get out of that. Then if we talk about certain case studies, one of the case studies which I have taken is Afghan Training and Livelihood Initiative. UNCRD High-Go Office carried out Afghan Training and Livelihood Initiative (ALT) in 2002-2003. As the Afghanistan is earthquake-prone country and is located in one of the most active seismic belt. Okay, world seismic risk needs to be incorporated in its rehabilitation process. So there is the need of rehabilitation of the public as frequent amount of earthquake takes place there. Case study, one of case study or school earthquake safety initiative. This is taken by the United Nations Center for Regional Development, is currently promoting school earthquake safety initiative through a project reducing vulnerability of the school children to earthquakes, jointly with the UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs in Asia and Pacific. In Asia and Pacific, certain schools are being picked whether they are in the zone of, you can say, risk zone. They are being provided with of the certain guidelines which help themselves in making prevention about the impact of the disaster. Now recommendation, local institution should demonstrate efficient disaster preparedness. Local institution, whatever they are there, they need to make themselves prepare about the disaster. Government should empower local institution. They should provide certain kind of financial help, other help which are needed. Young generation can take part in raising the awareness programs. Yes, volunteers and social workers can form their group and transfer the information. Vulnerable community and disaster victims can form their own groups. Their psychological support by tracing the loss of relatives. Community groups can be used to initiate small scale enterprises. Now with all this, I can conclude it here. The environment before and after the disaster has large impact on the ability of the people to recover. The immediate coping after the disaster could be solved by the various emergency efforts. If we provide the emergency efforts, all the situation before the disaster and after the disaster can be controlled and made normal as it used to be, but we need to work hard for that. We had been suffering from lots of disaster over the years. Natives know how to fight with the disaster from the experience. Native public, local people know how to fight with the disaster. Okay, it's our policy makers who are responsible for making holistic disaster management so that people can know the best possible things. Policy makers shall also come forward and make certain policies such that local public can find certain solutions of their problems. So with that, I would like to conclude. Thank you very much. If you have any doubt, any questions, you can message me or you can mail me. Thanks.